The Senate just recently passed an unemployment extension bill, barely beating a Republican filibuster, and now this bill heads to the House. Well, a lot of people are saying that, well, the House is probably not going to take up the bill, but maybe. In fact, I think some of the leadership is looking to try and make a deal as long as they can get something in return. I mentioned yesterday that they were looking for spending cuts and offsets in the budget elsewhere. I gave them a few ideas. Maybe we could cut some of that corporate welfare and use that to pay for this temporary extension. In fact, there's a lot of different places where they could cut. It seems like they're considering the extension, the House is. But right now, the Republican leadership is actually trying to rally some support. And in doing so, they sent out a memo. This memo basically tries to coach people, Republicans, into how to speak about unemployment benefits in a compassionate manner. Now, this was reported in the Washington Post. The memo tells representatives that unemployment is a, quote, personal crisis, and asks them to give proper consideration to an extension of long-term unemployment benefits. But there are some actual really key points that they have in this extension memo. For every American out of work, it's a personal crisis for them and their family. That's why House Republicans remain focused on creating jobs and growing the economy. That's really kind of funny because a lot of the stuff that they've tried to do in the name of creating jobs is cutting food stamps, cutting government, cutting government jobs, especially, because there's been a sharp decline in the number of government jobs. And growing the economy, which, despite their best efforts, actually has been growing. So I suppose that's good. Another key point in the memo that they try to point out is they try to, of course, blame Democrats. They point out that there are dozens of House-passed jobs bills. Basically, every one of them is essentially trying to cut or repeal Obamacare. That's what they consider a jobs bill nowadays. That are sitting in the Democratic-run Senate awaiting action, including the Skills Act, which helps long-term unemployed get training often needed to re-enter the workforce. Now, I'm totally in favor of job training bills for unemployed people. I think job training programs really do help. But usually they attach these sort of bills with either crazy legislation, crazy writers, or they put it on a bill to defund the healthcare law. Of course, it's not going to go anywhere. They're playing politics. Now, here's something interesting. It said that Washington has lost its priorities if it's more focused on making unemployment easier to tolerate than it is to getting people back to work and restoring independence altogether. Now, remember, there's some points that I had pointed out of why why so many people are still unemployed. There are significant issues in the workforce that are barriers to re-entry, considering long-term unemployment. Now, if they were to pass something like, a bill that would stop companies from being able to discriminate against the long-term unemployed, boy, that would be fantastic. But they haven't exactly went to try and pass something like that. I know that would probably help get other people back to work. If you could no longer discriminate against the long-term unemployed, that would get a lot of the long-term unemployed a better shot. And then here's another thing. They once again go back to blaming Democrats for not coming up with any fiscally responsible plans. And I love the projection here, as well as something that actually creates jobs. Once again, I got to ask, how does defunding the healthcare law and shutting down the government create jobs? It makes no sense. Look, this memo is pretty much full of crap and talking points used by House Republicans. It offers no solutions, but hey, at least they're considering extending unemployment benefits. At least they're considering it. So I suppose that's progress. Yesterday, the DNC actually criticized this plan and said, well, hey, wait a minute. Quote, Republicans can offer advice on how to sound empathetic when discussing unemployment, but it won't change the fact that today we saw the majority of Republicans in the Senate vote against extending unemployment insurance. And that was Press Secretary Rebecca Chaliff. It kind of amazes me that they have to even come up with a memo to urge Republicans in Congress to be empathetic to people who can't find work. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's like, wait a minute, you actually have to tell people to be people? You actually have to tell them to care? To urge them to care because it will look good politically? Oh, come on. That's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to tell people not to be, or to actually feel for other people. You shouldn't have to do that. We should naturally be empathetic to people.